Up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. Today, I'm going to be reviewing for you all some new spring makeup from Dior. I have the new limited edition Mimirose palette. I also have the new blush in the shade Rose Popeline. I also am wearing one of the new Dior lip maximizers to show you guys as well. We're going to be doing swatches, a demo of comparisons, and I'm going to be sharing with you guys all of my thoughts on whether or not these are must-haves for spring 2024. So if you want to hang out with me today and play with some new Dior spring makeup, then keep watching. Let's kick things off, friends, with some daylight close-ups and swatches of these products, starting off with the new eyeshadow palette, which is called Mimirose. Now, this is going to be a mixture of light, sparkly pinks. We also have a plum in there to kind of deepen things up. And then we have a very lovely iridescent shimmering blue. The blue, I know it looks really interesting, guys. It is more of like a topper shade. I'm going to show you guys in the demo how this looks on the eyes. It's kind of more so for layering on top of the other shades, but it is very beautiful. It's kind of like a little bit of an iridescent sheen. I also want to point out right here, guys, that we do have 3 shades that are all more or less the same color. They're all in the same color family, but they do have different finishes. So I'll kind of walk you through that as well once we get to the demo. This is going to be a little bit more of a sparkly palette from Dior. You know, you've got some toppers in there. You have some more iridescent shimmery shades. So keep that in mind as well. It's not going to be as soft and subtle as some of the other all satin palettes that we've seen from Dior. Now, when I look on the Dior website, because I'm getting a lot of questions about this, it doesn't say that this is limited edition, but when I actually got the palette and opened it up, it does say right here, friends, that it's limited edition, which makes me sad. I like it more when they just launch palettes and keep them around so you guys have a better chance of being able to purchase them. Now, just like every other palette, this is in the reformulated formula, so it's going to be talc free. It is also made in France. It has the same 6-month shelf life as all the other palettes, and you're still getting the full 7 grams of product. By the way, if you are new here, hello, welcome. My name is Sophia and I love luxury beauty. I upload new videos just like this one every single week. I do a lot of reviews of new luxury beauty and fun and helpful guides. So if you love luxury beauty, you just need help shopping for the next best thing, then hit that subscribe button to join our fam because we would love to have you. And as a quick reminder, friends, I will link where you can purchase all of these products in the description box down below. I purchased these on the Dior website. I'm not so sure if these are going to be showing up at Sephora, Ulta, any other retailers, guys, because a lot of these products are limited edition and they are exclusive to the Dior website. But I will keep a lookout for you, okay? Make sure you're subscribed to my channel and also follow me over on Instagram because that is usually where I first post if I find these things show up at other retailers. So all the details will be in the description box. And with that, friends, let's get on with the rest of this video. Next up, friends, we have the new blush. This is in number 280 Rose Popeline, and this is going to be in the matte formulation from Dior. They do have a couple of different finishes in their blushes. My favorite is the satin. I don't really like the matte formulation, but that's okay, guys. We're going to put this one to the test and maybe this will be the one that changes my mind. This color I thought was very interesting. That was one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to review it for you guys. I don't think I have a blush that is this light. We will do some comparisons later in this video to see if I can dupe it or get somewhat close. But as I was going through my makeup drawer, I realized I really don't have a pink blush that is this light. In fact, this is almost like a powder. It's almost like, you know, those pink tone powders that you use to kind of brighten up your skin, your under eyes, etc. That's what this kind of reminded me of. So you guys will have to let me know when I do the demo how you think this looks in the before and after. Now, this is in the reformulated formula, so it's going to be talc free. This also is made in France. This has the same 12-month shelf life as all the other blushes. And friends, I'm pretty sure that this one is permanent. It doesn't say limited edition on the box or the component or anything. So I think that this one is here to stay, which I'm excited about because if you want to get this later on this year, you will have the option to do so. All right, friends, let's dive into the new Mimi palette from Dior. I'm going to start things off with the center shade because this is really the only light satin shade that you have in the palette. These two are both pretty shimmery. This blue one is a topper, and then this one right here, also a satin, but it's deeper. So we're going to use that to build up some depth. So naturally, I'm going to be going into that soft pink center shade. And it looks absolutely gorgeous. Nothing too groundbreaking, but it is a really, really pretty shade. I'm also going to apply that same shade to the lower lash line once again, just to get a little bit more of a base, and it kind of brightens up the under eyes as well. So you kind of get the gist of what that center satin shade looks like. Very soft, very everyday. Now I'm going to go into this shade in the palette, which is a lot more high impact. It has more glitter and shimmer and metallic nature to it. It's actually this one right here, right below the one that we just used. And I want to layer that one mostly on top, a little bit more towards the the outer corner of the eye just to show you guys if you want to sort of kick things up a notch, you can go in with this shade. I would recommend just using a little flat brush because it's going to help you lay the color on very smoothly without getting a ton of fallout. This shade, it's a little bit creamier to the touch, probably because it has those sparkles in it, and whoever formulated the palette wants those sparkles to actually stick to the eye. This is actually the type of shade that I gravitate towards a lot because it makes a really nice one and done if you just want kind of like one sparkly shade all over the eye. I think next I'm going to go into the last pink shade, and we're just going to layer all of the pinks together. This one is more of a topper. It's a lot more sheer, but they're all kind of like in the same color family. See how this one, it has a little bit more of kind of pearliness to it. These are glittery. Like when you look at the swatches, they do have some glitter in them, but I feel like it's pretty well done for Dior. It's not going to be like a Huda Beauty glitter. It is a little bit closer, to be quite honest to you, to some of the ones that we've seen from Natasha Denona in the, for example, like I Need a Nude palette. So I'll do some comparisons for you guys towards the end of this video. I am going to be using the blue shade, but I think I'm going to save that one for the end. I'm going to build up a little bit of depth with this very beautiful dusty plum shade and a little brush. This is the Angie Hot and Flashy A502 from BK Beauty. And I've really been liking these for a lot of these spring looks where I just kind of like to do something a little bit softer. This is great for adding just a touch of these matte and darker shades in the Dior palettes. Very beautiful. This is not a true matte. Hopefully you guys can tell. It has a little bit of a satin quality to it, but not as much as the middle shade, which I like because there's some contrast there. And the rest of this palette is pretty sparkly. So yeah, I just kind of appreciate that addition because the spring palettes that we saw from Dior, the limited edition ones that just came out, those don't have really any kind of matte shades in them. They're all pretty light. So I like the fact that we have a little bit of contrast with this shade. Okay, now we're gonna go into the sparkly blue shade, and keep in mind, friends, this is more of like an iridescent topper. I have it right here on my hand. So you can see it just adds kind of a blue cast. It doesn't really have much of a base at all. So I'm thinking we can use this to give kind of like some special touches. Very pretty. Let's do the center of the eye and see what it looks like when I layer it on top. See how it kind of catches the light? It's more of like a beautiful finishing, unique touch at the end. If you guys remember the Byzance collection that Chanel did in 2023, where all of their palettes were inspired kind of like by gemstones and vintage jewelry that Chanel had done in the past, they had a lot of these little topper shades in them, and I know that a lot of my subscribers really enjoyed them because most of the palettes, they were kind of basic, you know, kind of simple color stories, but then they came with like that one little topper shade and it really made a difference. It's just kind of like a nice way to kick things up a notch and add something a little bit unexpected. I think this looks so pretty. I tried to pick a sweater today that matched with that one shade. You guys think I did? I feel like it goes pretty well. I feel like the colors are coordinating quite nicely today. So let's get this applied. I'm gonna put on, I think, some brown mascara to make this a little bit softer, and I'll be right back. All right, friends, so this is the final eye look. Comment down below and let me know what you think. You can definitely see the blue, but like I said, it's more of like an iridescence. It's more about catching the light. It's more of like a little something something than like a bright pop of blue. This palette, as I've mentioned multiple times, it does have more of like a shimmer and glitter impact. It doesn't look super chunky, and I really didn't get like much fallout at all, maybe like a little bit that I kind of brushed away. So make sure you're tapping your brush. But what I also want to say about that, friends, is that this more so than like your average Dior palette is going to highlight a little bit more texture. I feel like it looks really smooth on my eyes, but this eye in particular, I have like a couple little melia right there, and you can see them a bit more prominently. So if you do have very textured eyelids, this might not be the best palette for you. This is the beautiful eye look. Comment down below and let me know what you guys think. But we're not done. We need to go into the new blush as well. This is number 280 Rose Popeline. And once again, this is in the matte formula, which famously I don't really like. I don't really like the reformulated matte formula, but that's okay. We're going to give this a try. I'm going to be using this goat hair brush from Refer, and I specifically selected this one because it's very soft and airy. So hopefully it'll kind of give me a nice light application, but it's also made of goat hair. So it's going to sort of give me a little bit of blending action as well. It's not not super duper soft. So let's go in for the moment of truth. Get that dusted on. I feel like we can add more. I feel like we can add more. I think it's interesting that they decided to do a matte blush for this. I would have thought that they would have done, you know, maybe like more of a satin or slightly iridescent blush. It's very, very subtle. So I've got two very light layers on this cheek and then nothing on this cheek. You can see that kind of pastel pink cast. I don't know. What do we think of this, guys? Let's actually really build this up. Let's like cake this on and see what does it look like if I have a ton on my cheek right there. So there you go, friends. It's very matte, and these matte blushes, even though I don't love the formulation quite as much as the satin from Dior, they do last very long. They have amazing longevity. They also have a very strong fragranced floral scent. So I'm going to put that up there as well. I know a lot of you guys don't like that. They still have the strong scent, even though they're reformulated. So that's kind of like your side by side. I can definitely tell the difference. It almost looks like it kind of toned down my natural rosiness and replaced it with a little bit more of like a brightness, a springtime type of flush. I'm not sure how though this is gonna look on folks out there who have a deeper skin tone. It might look like more of a cast. So let me get this on, guys, and then I'll show you the final look. Actually, to finish up the look, I want to apply one of the new Dior lip maximizers. This is in the shade Rose Gold, and I thought this one would go really nicely with the look. This is one of the newer ones that they just released. They also came out with like an icy blue shade, which might go really well with this palette because it has the pop of blue. So you could do kind of like an iridescent slight blue sparkle, because I'm not gonna show blue on the lips, but you could do like a slight iridescent blue sparkle with the slight iridescent blue sparkle on the eyes. I think that would look so good. And here we are, friends. This is the final look. Comment down below and let me know what you think. What do you think of the eyeshadow, the blush? Do you like the new lip maximizer? I would love to hear all of your thoughts, but this is what we are working with today. Real quick, friends, I wanted to show you an 8-hour wear test with this particular eyeshadow palette. So as you guys can see, the pigmentation is still there. I don't see any creasing on my eyelids, but however, I do have a bit of fallout. So you guys can see there is quite a bit of glitter here and under here. That's to be expected, especially if there's a topper shade. But I do feel like throughout the day, I get more fallout with this palette just because it is a lot more shimmery. I bumped up my lights here so you guys can see, but I am happy with the longevity of the shadows on my eyelids. All right, friends, now it is time for my final thoughts. I'm going to kick things off with the eyeshadow palette, then I will talk about the blush, and then I will do comparisons for each of the products, which I recommend you stick around for because you might find that you already have something very similar in your collection. So we'll spend some time at the end of this video doing the comparisons. But before we get into that, let's first chat about the eyeshadow palette and some of the pros and cons that I see with this palette, because it costs $68 and the price keeps going up, guys. And I really want you to think whether or not this is something you want to add to your collection. I like the color story of this palette. I think it's beautiful. I think it is very wearable for spring. I feel like they gave us something that, you know, has like some pops of color here, but they are very wearable. I think that the formulation is beautiful. I didn't have any issue blending the shadows. I didn't get a ton of fallout. I've had really good wear time with this palette as well. I also really appreciate this beautiful iridescent blue. Like I said earlier, if you guys like those topper shades that came in the Chanel Byzance palettes, I think you're really gonna like this little pop of blue. It's not gonna be, you know, super blue on the eye. It doesn't really have much of a base. It's more of a topper shade. And if that's something that you enjoy, I think you're really going to like it. All of that being said, I have some major beef with this palette, and I'll explain what that is. These three shades are so redundant. Like, Dior, what were you thinking putting the same shade 3 times in this palette? And I know that they all have different finishes, but hear me out, friends. If you just put this down as a base, and then you put this one on top, you get the 3rd shade. So this shade right here is quite redundant. I would have preferred that they had put in another satin shade so you have something else to work with here. here. Even if it was another pink shade, I would have been happy, guys. Or even if it was like a beautiful white, something, you know, even frostier and more springtimey, or maybe something more interesting like, I don't know, a yellow, a lavender, something like that. As soon as you start layering them together, it kind of all starts to look the same. I feel like you could get a very similar look with a single shadow or an eyeshadow stick. So I'm going to show you guys some comparisons in a second to kind of give you some ideas, but you could very easily just find like a basic pink shadow, pop that on, find a little topper, or maybe, you know, a more interesting topper that you have in your collection from Pat McGrath or Hourglass or something, and just add that on top as your pop of blue. So is this palette super unique because it has this little pop of blue? No, it is not. I think you guys can recreate this look with a lot of other palettes that you have in your collection. And so for me, even though it is beautiful, and I do go for these shades a lot, especially if I want a very simple look, if I'm doing more of like a one and done type of thing, I do go for those shades. But I don't know, I just don't feel like it's worth the $68. I was really excited for this palette because I thought it looked so beautiful, but unfortunately, what I was kind of worried about was real, which was just the redundancy of those shades. So for me, it's a little bit of a fail. Now let's talk about the blush. I don't hate the blush. I'm a little bit on the fence about this. You guys are gonna have to comment down below and let me know what you think. I told you earlier in this video, I don't really like the matte formulation from these new Dior blushes that they came out with last year, because I find that the matte formulation, it gets a little bit patchy when I'm blending it. It's just not as smooth as the old blushes. The satin formula, that one is okay, but the matte formulations, I've learned I just need to kind of stay away from these. However, because this is so light, I find that I don't really have to worry about the patchiness. If it was a bolder color, I think I would have to be a little bit more careful, but you guys saw in the demo, I was kind of able to go ham because the color is so fair. I don't have anything this light in terms of blushes in my makeup drawer. I'm gonna do some comparisons to see if we can get pretty close to this, guys, but I really don't have anything quite like this. So that kind of intrigues me. It seems like it's the same tone as some of those pink powders that you see out there. Like for instance, Westman Atelier has that one that's like this pinky tone, and a lot of other brands have them too, but that's just the one that pops into my head right now. It's a very similar tone to this, and I'm wondering, is this too light for me? Like, who is this going to work for? It doesn't bother me as much that it's so pale because it's not limited edition. It's technically not really part of a collection. It's just a new blush that they're releasing for spring. So it's going into the permanent collection. There's other deeper blushes for folks who have deeper skin tones out there. So it doesn't bother me quite as much as it usually does when they launch these really, really pale blushes and then nothing else. But I'm curious to see, guys, even so, how many people feel like they can wear this color? How do you think it looks like on me? I think it adds a nice little pop of brightness. It's extremely subtle, but it's really only gonna work for people who are like my skin tone and fairer, and that's only a certain percentage of the population. I think that this is gonna look kind of chalky and ashy on anybody else that has a deeper skin tone, or if you're a little bit more golden, I'm not so sure that this one is gonna work for you. I would look into the blush that is a part of the limited edition spring collection from this year, because that one has more of like a peachy tone to it. I'll link it down below. I'm also reviewing that collection as well. In fact, that review is probably already up by now, but I think this would look good if you are very fair and have more of like a neutral to cool skin tone. But anyway, guys, I'm kind of rambling at this point. I think I like the blush is what I'm trying to say. I think it is cute, but it's really only going to work for those of you out there who are very fair. And because it is so light, I'm willing to make an exception for something that is in the matte formula because it's a lot easier for me to work with when it comes to my skin tone. Okay, now we're going to do some comparisons. Like I said, I have a couple of ideas to show you guys if you are really tempted by this palette, but maybe you're on a low buy or a no buy, or you just don't want to spend the $68 on the eyeshadow. I'm going to show you guys some things that might be a little bit comparable. So let's just take two of the shades from the Mimirose palette and put them right here. We're mostly going to be looking at the pink shades for the moment, and then I'll show you guys some things you might have in your collection for the blue. Now, my thought here, guys, is that there are some other eyeshadow sticks and singles out there that are very similar. So right here, I have some eyeshadow sticks. They are both, one is from Laura Mercier. This one is called Rose Gold. Now, this one is a little bit more nude, but I think you guys see what I'm talking about. Like, you can kind of dupe those vibes if you just put this one down as a base. I also have right here the shade Truffle. This one is extremely subtle if you're looking for something that doesn't have a lot of glitter. I don't have any eyeshadow stick I think that is more of this pinkier tone. But these brands, they have so many options to choose from. You can definitely dupe the colors that are in the Dior palette. I also have right here the Lisa Eldridge Liquid Lyric Shadow in the shade Cressida. This is one of my favorite one and dones ever. And I feel like when I put this on, I get a very similar look to what I have on my eyes right now. And then you could just put in like a plum shadow in the crease. I also have this single from RMS. They have their Eye Lights formula. This is in the shade Luster. They have some other really beautiful light shades in the collection as well. One of them that I really like is called Moonstone. See, this one is a little bit darker, but it's got like that pinky tone, so you guys can kind of see what I'm saying here. Maybe you have some of these little singles from Chantecaille. This one that I have right here is the Cheetah shade. I know that, once again, this is not super pink, but it's very light. You can layer this on top of another pink shadow that you have from another palette that you might have. I also have the Hourglass Scattered Light Shadows, and this one is in the shade Aura. This one is rather pink. These are always kind of hard to get out of here because I have long nails, but I'll kind of put that one on the inside of my palm there. Let's see if we can get a good swatch. It's a little bit hard because, once again, I can't get it out with my finger, but that's what the Aura shade looks like. These are really great if you want to create this type of shimmer and just kind of layer it on top of another shadow. And then the last little single that I have right here is from Victoria Beckham. I have the shade Blonde, and I love to put this on top of pink shades or even other neutral shades. This one is more of a white, but it's very beautiful and iridescent. So if you wanted something that kind of gave you more of that iridescent feeling that you get from the blue shade, you could pick up something like this as well. And she has other shades, but this is just the one that I happen to have. Now I'm going to show you guys some comparisons with actual eyeshadow palettes, and I will add in some side-by-side swatches. In my last video, you guys said we want the side-by-side swatches, so don't worry guys, I've got them for you today. First up, we have the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette, and I definitely think you can dupe most of the pinky shades that are in this palette with the I Need a Nude, especially the topper shades. The nice thing about these palettes from Natasha Denona is that you get all of those beautiful finishes. You have the wet look sparkle, you have the chroma crystal, you've got the metallics, you have all those different formulations from Natasha Denona. The only thing that's really missing here, guys, is the blue shade, okay? So you might want to just find like a topper if you're looking for something like that. And then you don't really get something that is quite this plum in the one from Natasha Denona, but you definitely have some in here that are kind of close and a little bit more mauvey leaning. Another palette you might want to reach into to dupe these vibes is the Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette. It doesn't have necessarily a pop of blue, but you do get pops of minty green, which I really like for a spring look. I love this shade right here, which is called Palladian. It is a gorgeous frosty mint green. I love it so much. And then you still get a lot of those pinky tones that you're getting from the Mimirose. If you are looking for just a go-to pink palette from Dior that I think is a little bit more worth it, actually, it's one of my favorite pink palettes from Dior. It is this one right here. It is the Rose Tool palette. Now, obviously, you're not getting the pop of blue, but you do get a really pretty shimmery shade right here. You also get more diversity amongst the shades. This one is going to look a little bit more rosy, as you can see in the difference in tones, and the Mimirose is more of like a lighter, fresher, kind of like ballerina pink. When I first saw the Mimirose palette, I instantly thought of the limited edition Miss Dior palette that came out. I want to say it was last spring. Time goes by so quickly, guys. I know that these are not exact, but you can see these both have the plum tones. They both have the soft pinks. They both have a sparkly shade as well. So all you need for this is the little blue topper shade. You basically already have all of the shades that are in the Mimirose. I also pulled out this little mini from Natasha Denona. This is the Mini Zendo palette. I have not used this palette in a really long time, but I was going through my drawer, and this actually looks like a slightly darker version of this palette. You have the pinks, you also have the plum, and then you also have this little pop in the center here, which is not a blue, but it's this really pretty, what would you call this? Almost like a cool toned champagne. It's a beautiful shimmery metallic in there, so you can kind of use that to give you a slightly similar aesthetic. Prepare yourself for this next comparison. I was really excited when I found this one because I was trying to find something that was somewhat similar to the blue that is in the Mimirose palette. I know a lot of the comparisons I've showed you so far are more of just like pink palettes because I don't have too many topper shades that look like this. They're definitely out there, but they're just not in my makeup drawer. However, I did find one that I think comes pretty close. This is the Pat McGrath Bridgerton palette. Remember the little pop of blue that we get from this one? Now, obviously, it's much sparklier than the one from the Dior palette. It's a different formula. It's more pigmented. But if you're like me and you have this sitting in your makeup drawer and you haven't pulled it out in a while, pull her out because you have all of these pinks. Even this pink right here, very similar to the Mimirose palette. And then you also have the plum shade and then you have the blue shade. You have everything that you need basically to create the look that I am wearing today. And I'll show you guys also, I have the other Bridgerton palette. This one is Belle of the Ball. I'll show you guys. You have some similar shades in there as well. And I'll show you some swatch comparisons of this one also, just in case you picked up this one as opposed to the other Bridgerton palette. And then finally, friends, I want to do some swatch comparisons with the blush. I have a fresh arm for you guys right here. So let's get a good swatch of the Dior blush. Oh my gosh, it's so light. It's very hard to swatch. Like I said, it looks like a powder. I don't really have anything quite like this, but I will show you some comparisons. Let's start off with the Gucci blushes. First off, I have here Silky Rose. This is one of the lighter shades that they have in their line. And that one looks more like a, kind of like a true rose. It has a little bit of like a peachy tone to it. I also have right here True Pink from Gucci. I love this one. It's like such a fresh pop of color. That's more of like the bright, poppy, cool tone blushes that were very popular in 2023. I also have the Dior Backstage blush in the pink shade, and this is going to be similar to the one from Gucci, except it is much less pigmented. These don't really swatch super well. It's going to be a lot more cool toned than the pastel Rose Popeline one. I also have right here French Rosé from RMS. This is going to be a lot glowier. It's going to be a lot more pigmented. So that's not similar either. I have one of the Givenchy Prism Libre blushes in the shade Taffeta's Rosé. These always get so messy. Look at this, guys. Can I do this? Is this going to work? It works! Yay! That is such a pretty pink blush, but it is closer to the other ones that I have right here. I honestly think, guys, the closest thing I can get to this Dior blush are some of the ones that I have from Suqqu. So for example, I have this lavender one. This is 131 gosh, I'm so sorry. Suqqu Yukari. 131 Suqqu Yukari. I got it, okay? And a lot of these blushes have this sort of shimmery highlighter side. So this is gonna be a little bit more like satiny. Let's do it over here. Yes, I think I did it. It's not matte, but it is equally as light. And listen, you don't need to have this exact blush from Suqqu, but look into your collection if you've ever purchased anything from Suqqu, which, by the way, if you haven't heard of the brand, it's a Japanese brand. They don't sell it in the US, so you have to buy it from a UK retailer like Harrods or Selfridges. So I'll link down below if you guys are interested. It is a fantastic brand, and they do a lot of these kind of lighter, softer types of blushes. They make fantastic blushes. Here I am reviewing Suqqu for you guys. You got to check them out. I was taking a look at some of the ones that I had in my collection, and I feel like these are the ones that best replicate what Dior is trying to do with this blush. Except, to be honest with you guys, the Suqqu ones, they're way better. And in fact, when I was looking at the Mimirose palette, this did remind me of Suqqu. I felt like this gave me very much Suqqu vibes, maybe minus the, duplicative nature of the shadows that are in here, but like the pop of blue and the color story very much reminded me of what Suqqu is doing with a lot of their color stories right now. So you might want to check out Suqqu if you guys are intrigued by these colors. So there you have it, friends. That is my review of the 2 new drops for spring 2024 from Dior, one of our favorite brands here in this channel. I hope that this review was helpful. I hope that you guys like the comparisons. If you like this video, please don't forget to give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Now it is your turn, friends. Sound up in the comments section down below. Let me know, what do you think of these colors? Are you mad that Dior keeps releasing more pink palettes? Are you excited for it? Are you excited for spring if you are in the Northern Hemisphere? And with that, friends, I hope that you see some beauty in your day, and I will see you in my next one. Goodbye!